Hello there. Welcome to the weekly updates with me, Hamza, from the touchlines. And we also have some international news also to bring in this weekend, along with the Sri Lanka UAE game. Like we predicted, there were some brilliant close encounters, and there were some upsets as well by a few of the A division teams in the top league. I'm going to start off with the St. Thomas's Isipatana game. St. Thomas's hosted Isipatana at Mount Lavinia. I feel from the start the Thomians controlled the game very well with Liana Gunardhan and Aluvihar standing out for them. And the scores were 7-0, and then thereafter Isipatana, St. Thomas's equals 7-all, and again Isipatana makes it to 14-all after trailing 14-7. And then in the halftime, St. Thomas's leading again with his third try, 21 points to 14. So I think this is the first time that the Green Machine was trailing in the halftime, if I remember right. And then St. Thomas's increases the lead again to 26 points to 14. So that's something that Isipatana didn't expect this season, or probably didn't experience this season. And thereafter, again, the Green Machine scores to make it 21 points to 28. And then, surprisingly, Isipatana puts another penalty to make it a 4 point difference, 28-24. And St. Thomas is playing the game in hectic pace. If you notice, the rucks and the ball from the rucks is very quick. And their forwards have been running really hard at the defense lines. And Isipatana uh, didn't expect this, and then I feel the ground conditions in Mount Lebanon. I know for a fact the width is little too small than the standard size of the other grounds in Colombo, and playing on their cricket pitch is also a special talent. I'm sure the St. Thomas's players only knows, because a lot of people suffer from the wind coming in from the beach side for the kicks, and everything would come into a snowballing effect if you're really not concentrating on the game. And the score stood 26 points to 24 for St. Thomas's, and winning the Thomian Isipatana encounter after 2009. That's a long time. And St. Thomas's proudly take the inaugural Rishi Memorial Trophy. I'm sure it's one of the probably the best games that they had so far. And I must mention that St. Thomas's Mayank Dias also stood really well. I mean, he's not the biggest man in the field. He really stood out along with Aluvihare and Riana Patirana. And I'm moving into Bamba for my next game. As you know, St. Peter's went down to Wesley pretty badly in that game. They were none of their game plans are working, and Wesley really defended the defending champions that have Lock Park last weekend. And Coach Sanat Martis is bringing in some changes, as many were expecting. Vishenka Silva moving into the second center position, and then Dimsara moving into the fullback, because I always felt that Dimsara is a very, very talented boy in terms of sidestepping and running, and he has a super acceleration speed, and he can decently kick well. So I felt that um, Dimsar should move into fullback, and then, like we predicted, Vishenka was not performing very well in the last man of defense. So Coach Sanat Martis didn't want to bring him to the winger position where he became the highest try scorer last season, but he came as a second inside. And little Jamal Wahab, who has been playing as a scrum half this season, came in as a fly half. So number 10, Jamal, is his favorite position, because I know for a fact this boy had been playing fly half since under 11 onwards, and he had been a brilliant distributor of the ball, brilliant reader of the defense. He has his quick side steps, quick running into the gaps. He's probably the smallest man in the field, and what I like about Jamal is he loves he loves his variation in the field. Sometimes he shows and goes, sometimes he steps in, sometimes he puts a pass, and again turns around and changing the direction. So that's what I like about this boy, and he's probably a utility player because he can play as a scrum half. He bound as a flanker when Shenuka Pereira was acting as a scrum half. I mean, Coach Martis tried this trick even last year with Dulaj coming in as a from number 8 to a scrum half in some of the moves. St. Peter's has an amazing 19 points to nil lead against DSS. So in that game, DSS were hosted by St. Peter's at Bambalapiti, and then uh, probably DS did not perform so well in the first half in terms of set pieces. There were a lot of spills, and St. Peter's had been dominating in the set pieces in the first half, and then um, there was also in the second half, DS scored a try, and then the scores are 19-5, and then St. Peter's immediately hit him back with Shenuko Pereira going over for a try on the right side, and then St. Peter's had a comfortable lead of 24 points to 5. And thereafter, DS scored their second try, 24 points to 12, and again in the last minute, DS tried so hard and scored 17 points. So that's their third try of the game, and St. Peter's getting a bonus point, and DS is also getting their losing bonus point in that game. Uh, like I mentioned, there were two other scoring opportunities for Dimsara on the left side in the second half, where he had two of his support players on the left side, but he tend to run to the left side and try to go over the try line. It was brilliantly held up by the DS forwards, and even uh, Jamal had a two into four overlap on his left side, but he tended to cut in. But ultimately, St. Peter scored in that game. So St. Peter's qualifying because this was a do or die battle for both DSS and St. Peter's, and St. Peter's qualifies for the cup segment with this win. And then Trinity Lions hosted Royal in a pre-match, pre-Bradby showdown in Pallakele. I mean, both teams in the first 15 to 20 minutes played really well. It was very equal, the forwards and the backs combining in both sides. And then in the fifth minute, start of the game, Akash Fernando, the lock forward for Trinity, had a very lucky call, I would say, by the referee, because obviously we don't have a TMO, and it's a referee and the two ARs who makes the TMO call by requesting the live TV coverage to put on the replays on the giant screen. And then there was a head-to-head collision, high tackle by Akash Fernando, and I think he was very lucky of getting a yellow card. And again, after Royal attacking 20 to 20, two facers in one of the attacking lines, and they knocks on the ball, and Trinity immediately scores their first try, and the second try also comes in a similar fashion of a knock on over a line out in the Trinity 22. Royal fumbles the ball, and Trinity capitalizing on the spill ball or the mistakes to make it 12-0. And then Idris Farouk of Royal probably had a decent game, I would say. And then he scores over a few penalties for Royal. And third try coming for Trinity through a super line break and to scores to make it 19-3. And again, Royal opting to take the penalties whenever they got the chance. And then the scores are 19-6. And then again, Royal scoring another penalty and then to make it 19-9. And then thereafter, uh, the Royal is try to put a lot of up and unders, and probably they were testing Altaf. He was vulnerable in one of the high balls, and thereafter Altaf was quite solid in the high balls. And I would say in the first half, also the Royal scrum half did not give very good clean ball to Idris Farooq, and then uh, even though their big forward Disas Patirana had super ball carries right throughout of the game to Royal. At halftime, 19 points to 9 for Trinity Lions. And then again, during the second half, Idris Farouk puts on another penalty to make it 19 points to 12. So here, the game probably the closest that Royal ever came. So they had a 7 point lead, and 20 minutes later, Trinity College scores off a beautiful cross kick, and Yadde Hige, their star winger, scoring on the right corner to make it 24 points to 12. And again, Shan Altaf was not very great with his boot converting those. And the second yellow card again coming to a Trinity player uh, of a tackle without the ball. And again, the mitigation factor, what the referee Alexandra um, uh, took into consideration, I would say Trinity player was lucky again because for me, definitely one of those yellow cards would have been a red card because as a referee, direct head collisions, late charges, the mitigation factors would definitely um, um, would would definitely play a vital part of awarding that yellow card or the red card. But then for me, one of those yellow cards would have been a red card. And then again, Trinity scoring another cross kick try and six tries scored off by the Lions to make it 32-12 into no tries by Royal. So this is something that Royal coaching staff, along with the Dushanth Luke Banukar, should go back to the drawing board before they commence their second round because I'm sure the pattern that Trinity played, most of the teams, the other team who's going to face in the second round would definitely look at not once, definitely twice. And then the unbeaten Wesleyites hosted Anand at Heavies, and I mean, not many hopes with Anand, even though a lot were expected by the Anandians after how they played the last two games, and particularly the last game in Kandy against St. Anthony's, and Wesley scoring off in their 13-14 channel through their winger, two tries back to back to make it 12, and then 12-0, and then Anand scores two penalties to make it 12-6. So in the 28th minute, Wesley had a comfortable lead of 19 points to 6, and halftime again scoring another try, 24 points to 6. So uh, Anand scoring soon after the halftime with a brilliant three-quarter move, and you saw how their line was formed pretty deep. They had a nice kick and chase by their center three-quarter to make it 38 points to 11. And because Wesley by this time has really scored some brilliant tries, and they had a very comfortable lead. And the final scores of 43 points to 11. So with this win, Wesley along with St. Thomas's and Trinity, are the only three teams which remain unbeaten in the cup segment. And at Longden Place, St. Joseph hosted Sri Sumangala. So again, St. Joseph had not been performing very well right throughout the season. They have been losing a lot of games. Not many good, good patterns of play or flair with the Joes. But however, Joes was a different side in this game, and Sri Sumangala was completely outplayed. 28 minutes gone in the first half. Joes are leading 27 points to nil. So that's something that Joes would have really, really wanted because after they have been losing games in the first round. And then their forwards are really dominating play, and all four tries were scored by the forwards initiated moves. And halftime it was 27 points to 7, and then thereafter Joshua on a rampage. They ran away 10 tries, keeping the 7 points only for Sri Sumangala, and the final score was 67 points to 7, which probably was the highest score recorded in last weekend. And then in Nittavela, there was another interesting match. I would say the big match between Dharmaraja and Kingswood, and then entertaining game from the start. Both teams playing absolutely fast open rugby. Rajans opened the scoreboard with 5-0. Kingswood equalized again. So it was a ding-dong battle. Again, Rajan scores 10-5. And Kingswood had two brilliant players who stood out in the entire game. And they were three quarters. Bahudin, I think probably he was a fullback, and also Tamodya. Tamodya was really controlling the game as a fly half, and he was feeding the ball. His running lines are great. His stepping was really great, and how he was offloading timely to his center or the backup players were really entertaining to watch. And then Bahudin and Tamod, they're combining for their third try to make 15 points to 10. And in the halftime, in the halftime, the scores led 12 points to 10. And then the third try came from the number eight of Kingswood. He stood out in the last weekend. And the fourth try again from their own 22, Kingswood running, brilliant line, crashing through the center, support play on left and right, and then 24 points to 10, Kingswood are leading. So Kingswood have been really dominating this game, and it's nice to see that the red shirts from Candy is coming back to their old ways of playing entertaining, fast, open rugby. Um, Rajan scored again during the latter part of second half, and it was 24 points to 17, and the final scores to 27 to 17 after a penalty that Kingswood took over. And in Marathon, again, I would not call a shock, but we never expected Zahira to play this game and win this game in such a big margin. Mahanama was hosted by the Zahira Tankers in Marathon in their home grounds in front of a large crowd. And then, even though Mahanama College drew the first blood in the left corner, Zahira College immediately scored through a nice line break. And then for me, Zahira Flyer Bashid Feroz stood out really well. And I know that he's a newcomer to the team, probably in the starting lineup, but he really executed a super ball to their backs, super moves, and then 22-5, a comfortable lead to Zahira in the halftime, and they scored tries after tries in every given interval. And one beautiful try came in the second half with two double scissors, a nice overhead pass, inside pass, beautifully handled, very entertaining to watch. Zahira three quarters playing that kind of a rugby this season. And the final score was 58 points to 17. And Mahanama did not have an answer the way that Zahira played. And it was very disappointing performance by the lads from Mahanama, because everyone expected Mahanama to step up, after they have been performing decently well in the first few games. And 10 tries to 3. So that's 58 points to 17 against Mahanama, and Zahira winning comfortably. And then in Mount Lavinia, on a Sunday, Science College hosted St. Anthony's. Again, my bets were with St. Anthony's because how they performed in the last two games was simply brilliant. And this game was a like a do or die battle, I would say, for Anthony's, because they have been losing all the four games. Some of them were pretty close encounters again, particularly the Anand encounter. And then Antho led 7-0 in that game. Again, both backs, both three quarters from both sides have been really playing the game super fast. St. Anthony's led 14 points to 7, and then thereafter they increased the lead in second half to 21 points to 7. And then at this time, St. Anthony's got a penalty under the post, and they opted to kick it to touch, couldn't score. And again, they got two back-to-back penalties by referee Gihan Yatawar, giving inside the 40. Kickable penalties, I would say. I mean, they're not so far away. And probably St. Anthony's thought they were leading 21-7. They want to probably kick it to touch and score their bonus point try. Surprisingly, Science College came all guns blazing in the second half mid, and they scored two back-to-back tries to make it 21 all. Now, this is something really surprising for St. Anthony's, because they would have never expected the boys from Mount Lavinia to hit back uh, in regular intervals. I would say within the course of few minutes, they hit back two tries, and then St. Anthony's were trailing one time. Um, uh, 21 points to 24, because Science took that penalty what they got in the kicking range. And then in the last minute, probably about a few minutes left, 62nd minute, Anthony scored a try, and then the scores are 28 points to 24. Even though Science tried really hard in the last minutes, and Anthony defended very well for nearly 8 minutes. From that game, I don't want to conclude before I touch the final game. In Sugatdasa Stadium on Friday, Thurston College hosted Vidyartha from Kandy, and Vidyartha scoring first, and then halftime, it was Thurston who dominated the position and the territory both, and then they had a comfortable lead of 21 points to 5. And after the halftime, um, Thurston College again takes a lead. Uh, but however, Vidyartha coming in, fighting brilliantly in the second half because they looked a completely different side from the way they played the first half, I would say. And then 24 all was the score, and then Thurston didn't probably read Vidyartha how they were attacking, and then I mentioned this boy's name before as well. Sithila Jayatilaka, the number eight. He's a brilliant player for Thurston. I would say he would be a brilliant player for junior nationals. I'm telling this now. Junior nationals of Sri Lanka, and I'm sure he would definitely wear the Tuskers just because he's a gutsy player, not the biggest player, but he really plays hard. And then he scored the winning try for Thurston with a last minute try, 31 points to 24. With this win, Thurston probably had their first win this season. That concludes a week five of the league. And in the second, so we will have a break next week. And then in the cup segment on the first weekend, after the week's break, Isipatana will meet Double Blues Wesley. St. Peter's will host Royal at Bambalapiti, and St. Thomas's will play Trinity. So these are the six teams who are in the cup segment. And then I'm moving into the plate segment where DSANAC, Anand, Kingswood, Zahira, Sri Sumangal and St. Joseph's are in the plate, and in the bowl, St. Anthony's at Science, Mahanama, Dharmaraja, Thurston, Vidyartha. So these are the six teams in the bowl. And definitely, Isipatana Wesley would be a game to watch because Wesley coming unbeaten and Isipatana coming with one loss. St. Peter's Royal again, both teams have lost one games each. St. Thomas's Trinity, two unbeaten teams clash. So after the first week, definitely the league can go wide open again of the cup segment. In the international news, we had Sri Lanka hosting UAE in the Asian Rugby World Cup qualifiers, and unfortunately, Sri Lanka also fell short in this game. And we expected a lot, but however, Sri Lanka had a lot of injuries for their front row, and you had players like Dushmant Priyadarshana, Kabodi coming into the game, Nizna Nilar coming into the game, and Thenuko Nanakkara starting up. So we had a lot of injuries. A lot of players were not available for selections for this game, particularly Srinath Surya Bandara, Nigel Ratwate, and also Heshan Jansen. So he has been traveling to UK. This is what I heard. So Sri Lanka has to put aside with available resources what they got, and then 7-3, UAE had a lead and 12-3, and then Sri Lanka equalized with a brilliant try with Tarinder Ratwate slicing through the 9-10 channel and offloading it to the scrum half. And then 13 points to 12, Sri Lanka had a slender lead, and then UAE puts over another penalty to make it 15 points to 13. So thereafter, UAE was really dominating the game, and there was a nice, beautiful try scored by the UAE Fijian combo off a three-quarter move. A grubber was beautifully chased on the left corner to make the score 22-13, and thereafter Tarinder Rathod is scoring off a penalty to make it to cut down the deficit to 22 points to 16 in the halftime. And then again, a beautiful executed cross kick by Tarinder Rathod off to not the fastest man in the field, off to the front row of the Sri Lankan team to make the score 21 points to 22. So this is where the 1 point lead that UAE had. And Sri Lanka was really, they had a good momentum after this try. And Sri Lanka gets a penalty under the post, eyes closed. Anyone, whether it's Tarinder or Thenuko Nanak or anyone would have easily scored that penalty. And then we opted to go to touch and then we couldn't score, and then UAE scored their winning, try to make it 29 points to 21, and then with this win, Sri Lanka loses all their three games, and UAE managed to win two games, and like we expected, Hong Kong thrashing South Korea to make it to the World Cup along with Japan. So that's something good news for the Asians because we have two teams going up to Japan. And of course, in the international rugby fixtures, Japan beating Wales 24 points to 19. So I'm sure Coach Eddie Jones would have been really proud of the Japanese team. And New Zealand beating France 31 points to 27. A lot of talks about this game because France was fielding a second tier side. They didn't have their regulars, and definitely the All Blacks were really struggling to win that game, I would say. And then South Africa beating Italy comfortably 42 points to 24. And then Georgia losing to Ireland 34 points to 5. And then again, England winning against the Pumas, Argentina 35 points to 12. And Australia beating Fiji 21 points to 18. Again, another entertaining game. And then next weekend, between 12th and 14 July weekend, we have Fiji versus Scotland, Japan versus Wales again, New Zealand versus France, South Africa playing Italy again, and Argentina versus England. So that's it from me, and enjoy your week. And we'll be having a break this week from the show, from the next weekend, I would say. And I'll be back again the weekend after with the catch up with all the rugby news in Sri Lanka, particularly the Cup segment games, which I would really look forward to. And that's it from me. And have a great week. And thank you.